Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Growing Up Alien. Yeah, today I just kind of did a spur of the moment video on how both the United States and the United Kingdom violated the Nuremberg Code by spraying over the oceans and over populations different types of chemicals and bioweapons. So I set up a little short video, and it's such an easy thing to look up, it's fascinating because so many people are kind of surprised to see some of these things, but they've always been right there in plain sight. Um, and I didn't do an in-depth dive. I did use a little bit of Google Scholar, but I haven't gone crazy on this because if you just say Google Operation Sea Spray, which is one of the things we look at, it's all over the internet, all kinds of news reporting, even PBS did a show on it. So yeah, it's not undercover, it's not hidden, the fact that the United States as well as Great Britain was doing these bioweapon tests. And we're talking mostly in the 1950s up to 1979. Well, officially. So the idea that there's this fog that's making people sick, the idea that they're spraying stuff and these chemtrails is not confusing. And I know a lot of people, what people in the normies, whatever you want to call them, sheepies, have a hard time understanding this stuff. But it's very important to get the official scholarly patents as well, information, so that then you can share that with um, your general public who seems to be, I mean, like I said, this stuff's not hidden. It's one quick little Google. I even got a bunch of stuff. We're gonna look at Wikipedia. I mean, how like I always tell my, you never use Wikipedia, right? It's on Wikipedia, and they didn't even seem to be hiding too much. So we'll look at Wikipedia and one of the first ones as I pull these up. So I'm also going to do a little play with Bill Tompkins. If folks don't know who Bill Tompkins was, he was worked in the think tanks way back in the 50s, 60s under different corporations for the military. Started to work with the U.S. Navy. So the claim to fame with William Mills Tompkins, and I'm going to read some of his stuff today. So we're going to actually do some. Oh, it's going to be backwards. I can't show a book on here. It's going to reverse it. Anyway, yes, it's selected by extraterrestrials. It's William Mills Tompkins, of course, the famous Dr. Wood, and why we have a connection in our family here is with Frank Chili, because Frank Chili has hours and hours of some of the original interviews with William Mills Tompkins on the Jeff Rense radio show. So actually, our friend Frank is in Selected by Extraterrestrials, Volume 3. It's so cute. So he is engaged in some of the interview there with Bill Tompkins. So we're going to read some of that. I recommend these books. I'll put a link in the bottom. You guys can get copies of them. They're really intriguing, and really Bill Tompkins has been heavily vetted not only by Dr. Wood, well, especially by Dr. Wood, whose career was kind of, he says, Bill, you better you better be like, don't be pulling my leg here with this stuff. But it seems legit. Frank feels like it's legit. Michael Salla was involved as well. So yeah, I get a good feeling. I actually talked to one of the oh, there's Jesse. I actually talked to one of the secretaries. That was a little fishy. Anyway, her name is Jessica. Whether or not Jessica is Maria Orsic, that's kind of where she didn't say. I didn't ask her that. I just connected with Jessica, but that's not her real name. But anyway, I did connect with her twice. Telepathy. Um, the second time was a little fishy, and Ika was not happy with that. So we'll save that one for the Patreon. But anyway, let me just share screen here. So, and the interrupting rooster on the bioweapons. So, all right, here we go. Share, downloads. All right, popping up is it came out blurry. I'm so sorry about that, but this is just a Wikipedia. We don't want it running yet, but see if we can actually see it. It'll be an idea. So in the Wikipedia, um, I just Googled Operation Sea Spray. Nope, there's the sound. But there's a bunch of these um, bioweapons tests that were unleashed on the populace at the bottom of the Wikipedia article. I know it's all blurry here, but there was Operation Big Buzz was a U.S. military operation there to try to do something with mosquitoes. That's something you hear recently. Go on to the next one. Let's see if it comes out any clearer. I can play it. Let me just play it. You can see that. That's the one Operation Big. That's um which one was Big Itch. Yeah. This is Operation Big Itch. It was a US what was that? Immunological warfare again involving fleas. So the tests were um conducted at Dugway, another great place, Dugway Proving Grounds in 1954. A lot of these were in the 50s. They were going to town in the 50s. They've had, I mean, there must be like 10 of these. The next one, let's pull it up. Operation Magic Sword was a 1965 U.S. military operation designed to test the effectiveness of the seaborne release of insect vectors for biological agents. That's another one they did. Operation Mayday was a series of entomological warfare using bugs again, tests conducted by the U.S. military in Savannah, Georgia in 1956. I know, and a lot of folks are wondering about the Lyme disease and, the Zika. Well, yep. Here's another one. This was Project Bacchus was a covert investigation by the Defense Threat Reduction Agency to determine whether it is possible to construct a bioweapons production facility with off-the-shelf equipment. So can you do it? I'm sure they did. Project 112 was a biological and chemical weapon experiment program conducted by the United States Department of Defense from 1962 to 1972. Operation Whitecoat was a biodefense medical research program carried out by the United States Army at Fort Detrick, Maryland between 1954 and 1973. The program pursued medical research using yeah, program. Here you go, guys. Those of you who are in Montauk, MK Ultra, one of the precursors here, the program pursued medical research using volunteer enlisted personnel who were eventually, nicknamed. Yeah. So they would obviously test a lot, and they're still doing that. They're testing stuff on the, and volunteer enlisted. There you go. Nothing to see here. Yeah, Operation Polka Dot was a U.S. Army test of a biological cluster bomb during the 1950s. Operation DO refers to two separate field trials conducted by the United States in the 1950s. The trials were designated to study the behavior of, read my stuff here, insect-released biological agents. So they're very fixated on using bugs. So you wonder if there's something coming up with that one next. And okay, this is the photo. I'm actually gonna grab. This is from Bill Tompkins. This is on the back of Selected by Extraterrestrials, Volume 2. And Bill Tompkins, this was taken out in California, and you may be wondering what that is. The photo was taken in 2006 of alien craft who presumably forgot to turn on their cloaking to prevent photography. Author Bill here conjectures that the gases being dispensed are intended to weaken our minds and shorten our lives. So this was taken south of Oceanside, California. It was actually a surprise photo. It was some people who were actually buying some property and they were taking photographs. And in some of the photographs, they ended up this, right? So you have this sort of like cigar type ship and also a canisters, and they're releasing something. So Bill knew about a lot of this. This is reptilian, and reptilians were working, of course, with the military and in the government. and they would spray certain areas, like particularly over Silicon Valley, places like that, to use them as sort of neurological or cognitive agents that would, dumb you down, basically. So keep everybody busy, dumb, poison. This, we've talked about this before, and we'll go deep diving in our Patreon channel um, about some of these. I know they're bio weapons in a way, but they have a distinct design to maintain a population that is not going to resist, that is not going to notice things, that is not going to, rock the boat. That was really the goal behind a lot of the stuff in the food, the stuff sprayed on people, for sure. And that's nothing new. We know that. So, I mean, it's not even hidden. Just buy some processed food and look at the ingredients. You know that the dyes that are used in candy that's fed to children, because generally, right, candy is something kids like. Also in the cereals, who gets fed a lot of that stuff? Children. And the best time to mess with somebody's cognitive abilities is when they're children. So a lot of the dyes and chemicals, and I'm not saying anything that's radical here, are banned in Europe. I mean, it's like we all know that. So yeah, that's that section. The next one I'm going to bring up. All right. This is like I said, I didn't do any real crazy deep dives. This is stuff you can find in seconds, because that's important. Because if you're going to be sharing stuff with people and in the general public, you want to be, hey, look, here it is. You don't have to go hunt stuff down, and stuff you can share on YouTube and everything. So this is PMC, PubMed Central. I just did this on a Google Scholar search. Actually, it's quite simple. This, I think, even if you just Google this, it'll pop up. So it's open air biowarfare testing and the evolution of values. So essentially, what they say in the conclusion of this journal article is that, and they actually just say it. They say that the population has, since the 1950s, not been so um, receptive to these kind of um, questionable things that go on. So, in the 1950s, people didn't really ask questions. The DDT and all that stuff. They didn't care. All the chemicals that were being put out, they thought was magic. And it was an era of extreme deception, unfortunately, laid over the population. But again, the 1950s was also a great era of contact, where you actually had your physical contact. The Venusians were at the forefront in the 1950s. So it is kind of curious, which I know Frank and I have talked about this in a bit. The current, I don't know, ufology or disclosure or ET, whatever you want to call it, movement, never ever seems to address, very rarely if they do, these original contactees, many of which are maybe sometimes vilified, unfortunately. So there has been analysis of movies and videos, photos, there, but that were produced in the 1950s and after, before CGI, before AI, before you could do anything in your home without, I mean, you didn't even have it in the movie industry, didn't have it. So in order for someone like Billy Meyer to fake those videos, he'd have to do it today. There's no way he could have done it back in that day. No one could have done it back in that time. And it always makes me laugh when I hear these fascination that we I think this is drummed up by the CIA and the government, this whistleblower phenomenon that's being brought out. Really, none of these whistleblowers are actually saying or showing anything. They have nothing to say or show. Just the same, just blurry pictures. And then you'll hear these like announcers, whether it's Nicole Tart on News Nation or what have you. Oh, this is amazing. This is amazing. It's just bullshit. Boy, we finally get some real pictures of this kind of phenomena. Like, if you want a good picture of a UFO, including the sound, which have all been analyzed, Billy Meyer, that's Semyasi's ship. There's actually this, and the sound of that ship. We did a video on it here on Growing Up Alien. That the sound of her ship has been analyzed, and they don't. They're like, this is anti-gravity waves. And we did it. I did a whole video. I don't know if I did it. I think I did actually with Evan. It's like people are. What is wrong with humanity? Your government is not going to show you anything. These whistleblowers, until it changes, are not, in fact, have not shown you anything. They haven't shown you anything. They just said, well, I worked here and supposedly these things, and that don't mean anything. We actually have footage. We have friends on our channel here that have footage. I saw a scout ship up close follow my car. We have Barry who comes on and he's seen Andromedan ships up close, like up close and personal. Louise, I actually saw one of the ships with Louise. She has a ship that keeps coming by. You guys have probably had insane contact that blows all these supposed whistleblowers who work for the deep state out of the water. It's in, you know, if you want to see pictures of ships, go look up Billy Meyer because most of those are the real deal and find the ones that have been analyzed. It's an open video right on YouTube of the sound of Semyasi's scout. It's there. Howard Menger. Yeah, I mean these old timers. They Fred Bell. I mean, anyway, yeah. Then most of these people Frank has met, and that's I try to keep things firsthand as much as possible. I we have some lovely members of our community that are coming on. So everybody's getting. This is another thing I'm talking about this today. Everybody, I've had to cancel at least 3 interviews because everybody's sick. It's like we're all dominoes. We're all getting sick one after the other. It was like, and it's bad. It's like, what's going on? And it almost seems to add exactly. See, Jesse agrees. Almost adds a physical element because like I never get sick and I never get injured. And I'm like sore and really, really sore. Evan's sore now too. It's like, so I don't, who knows what the fudge they're throwing out there. So anyway, we're going to be looking at this one here, which is from PubMed Central, a renowned peer-reviewed journal article. There it is, abstract. And as I always mention to folks, just in case, I am a trained professional. What does that mean, right? I have a PhD from Boston University, full scholarship. So I taught at university for 19 years. Been there, done that kind of stuff. So in case, well, what does this person know about stuff? Well, yeah, I kind of know. I mean, I don't believe in I can't stand the word expert. I would never. Thank you, Jesse. I would never use the word expert or anything like that. I don't consider myself an expert in anything. I just kind of go with the flow. But anyway, for those people who are obsessed with celebrity and all that stuff, still, all right, I have a PhD. Now you know. So the abstract is the United States and the United Kingdom ended outdoor biological warfare testing. Yes, folks, outdoor biological warfare testing after the signing of the Nuremberg Code. And yet, exactly, Jesse's agreeing, nothing was ever done. Huh. Okay. Testing in populated areas nearly half a century ago. Biological warfare testing in populated areas. Okay, after the code. Anyway, whatever. Yet the conduct, health effects, and proprietary of those tests remain controversial. Yeah, I guess they do. So I don't know. The varied views reflect the limits of currently available test information and evolving societal values on research involving human subjects. Western political culture has changed since the early days of the American and British testing program. So apparently now being sprayed with chemicals and biological agents is frowned upon, whereas before everyone was cool. And they don't know why that was such a problem. But anyway, people have become less reluctant to question authority. And institutional people have become less reluctant. See, that's the key point. I mean, that, and you still have people alive today um, from this period. I guess they're called the silent generation for a reason. Sure, spray me with whatever you want. It's sad, really. There was so much trust in authority figures, really, in that time. So if you have anybody from that age who's still doing that, you gotta maybe kind of wake. My mother's 92 and she woke up. You know what I mean? It's like she was one of them. She was part of the silent generation that just like they believed all these people, all these experts, all these celebrities, all these religious figures, yada yada, the government, politics, democracy, and all that bullshit. And but now she don't. Anyway, my father never did. My father was a Pleiadian envoy, by the way. So there you and institutional review boards must now pre-approve research involving human subjects. Well, Further, the heightened stringency of laboratory containment has accentuated the safety gap between a confined test space and one without physical boundaries. All this makes it less likely that masses of people would again be unwittingly subjected to secret open air biological warfare tests. So, for those people who'd have an issue understanding the fact that this stuff is real, I don't know what to tell them. So, I'm going to pull up now. Actually, I'm just go to full view, I suppose. Let me get rid of this. I'm going to pull up, here it is, the article. And I'll put the links so you guys can read it on your own. But it's the UK field testing during the Cold War. So the British response included I can't do my sometimes like these computers. The British response included open air tests with pathogens at sea between 1948 and 1954. Now, be aware of those dates, post Nuremberg Code. Five trials. You tell how they got away with it, but anyway, five trials were conducted in waterways around the UK and in the Caribbean region. Ships towed pontoons and dinghies that carried caged monkeys, sheep, and guinea pigs. Nice, huh? A little bit of vivisection. Oh, what the military does to animals. We won't even, yeah, whatever. Personnel in protective outerwear. Wonder how protective that was, you know? You got to wonder if it'd be interesting to do interviews with some of these military people that were in this situation. Well, they're probably all dead. That would be my guess. Outerwear sprayed select agents or detonated agent-filled bombs in the direction of the trailing animals. Can you imagine this kind of stuff? You can't, my brain does, anyway. The released agents include anthrax, right? Pestis, as well as brucella and Francisella tularensis, yeah, causes of brucellosis, right, and tularemia. And the purpose was to assess the effects of dispersal methods and durations of exposure on the animals. As indicated in one of the trial reports, biological efficacy of a bacterial cloud is expressed as a dosage required to give 50% infection, so ID 50, or lethality, the LD 50. Those of you involved with anti-vivisection will be aware of the LD 50 tests, you know, the brutal torture of non-humans. Yeah, it is what it is. Right? Many technical details of the findings remain unavailable. I have to just pick, I mean, just not to make, it's like, um, those of you, I've been abducted, those of us who've been abducted, and there's probably a lot of these people who would be like, oh, that's terrible what the Greys did to humans, and it was. But look at what we did look at what the Terrans, look at not only what they did, look at what the Terrans are doing to animals by the trillions probably by now. The absolute brutal torture every single day of non-human beings. I mean, anyway. All right, many technical details of the findings remain unavailable, including the number of animals that became infected or died. Various trials were judged to be successful, partially successful, or a failure. Success meant at the least that many animals had become infected. So they were just spraying this stuff, and you saw what I was talking about, some serious, in succeeding years, the UK's biological warfare program became more oriented to defensive than offensive capabilities. So the UK and the United States are bedfellows when it comes to deep state stuff. By the late 1950s, rather than employing actual biological weapons, the British commonly used simulants in what became known as large area coverage, LAC tests. The simulants were principally so Bacillus globigi, Bacillus subtilis, Escherichia coli, E. coli, Serratia marquescens. This was used by the Navy, by the way, as well, and the chemical zinc cadmium sulfide. So they were spraying, to make a long story short, which is what people are talking about with the chemtrails. They've been spraying this stuff for a long time. The earlier trials with actual warfare agents had been conducted at some distance from population locations. With a shift to large area testing, a simulant could blanket an inland area of more than 1,000 square miles. Between 1955 and 1977, simulants were repeatedly sprayed from aircraft. Oh my. Those are contrails. Those aren't chemtrails. You tinfoil hat people are crazy. Well, this is from the NIH here. Between 1955 and 1977, they were spraying from aircraft, ships, and land generators. When released along the south coast of England, these agents reached several population centers. Additional tests with simulants were conducted in variously located cities, including London, Norwich, Southampton, and Salisbury. During the 22-year period, millions of Britons were unwittingly exposed to the test agents, which demonstrated the country's vulnerability to a biological attack. I don't think the people of Great Britain realized that their vulnerability to a biological attack would have actually been through their own military. But okay, you can make an argument for the Nuremberg Code if they're using animals. That wasn't part of it. It's always non-humans don't have feelings apparently, according to these idiots. But anyway, I mean it's so Draco. That's just oh God. Anyway, so here you're looking at a problem though. They're actually putting it over people. Um, so that's no bueno when it comes to, but they got away with it and nobody cares. Like we're just reading this now and this is published and it's just like, oh yeah, cool, whatever. Yeah. The US field testing during the Cold War. The British and the American open air experiments were similar. They tested the effects of the same pathogens, used the same simulants, and employed comparable scenarios. American scientists participated in the early British Caribbean trials in part to gain experience for future US sea-based tests. See, it's funny because your media always talks about biological weapons and bioweapons, and it's like from these other bad people, it's like, oh no, we were spraying these babies. You'll never hear them say that. So in 1964, U.S. boats sailed on a 100-mile-long line off the Johnston Island Atoll in the Pacific, carrying monkeys, with boat crews in sealed quarters, and airplanes sprayed the path with the agents F. tularensis and Coxiella burnetii, the cause of Q fever. 4 years later, in 1968, a similar U.S. test was conducted near Eniwetok, another Pacific atoll, using staphylococcal enterotoxin B, a cause of debilitating illness. The tests were part of Project SHAD, Shipboard Hazards and Defenses. You can look that up, and I'll give you the link to the things. It's Project SHAD. From 1963 to 1973, SHAD included 52 sets of tests, many involving multiple releases of biological or chemical agents and locations as far-ranging as the Desert Test Center, 80 miles from Dugway, Hawaii, the Panama Canal Zone, and off the coast of San Diego. Besides the 3 microbes cited above, open-air releases included the nerve agents sarin, tabun, somen, and VX. One or more of these potential biological or chemical weapons was used in 26 SHAD tests. Biological simulants were also released, B. globigii in 24 tests, and C. marquesans in 7 tests, and E. coli in 5 tests. So the public first learned about Project SHAD at congressional hearings in 2002, more than 50 years after its implementation. The belated disclosures were especially surprising, well, not to us, because 25 years earlier, the Army had acknowledged other 1950s and 1960s germ warfare tests and had made no mention of SHAD. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, you mean they don't? Oh, they would always tell the truth, wouldn't they? At 1977 Senate hearings, Army witnesses disclosed that from 1949 to 1969, 239 open-air tests were conducted in populated areas throughout the United States. At 1977 Senate hearings, Army witnesses, here we go again, disclosed from 1949 to 1969, 239 open-air tests were conducted in populated areas throughout the United States. That's a Nuremberg Code violation. Unlike SHAD, the previously revealed tests used only simulants, mainly S. marquesans, B. globigii, and the chemical zinc cadmium sulfide. You should not be spraying any of those over people. Yeah, what are the aims of the field test, they say? So some of this has been partially declassified now. It was effects of the environmental conditions on released agents. So they actually didn't even know. They were releasing stuff like anthrax and not knowing what it was going to happen, where it was going to go, how long it would stay in the air currents, blah, blah. Over water versus land, daytime versus nighttime. So they sprayed this stuff over water and over land, in sunlight, in cloudy conditions, weather variations, wind velocity, blah, blah, humidity. Ability of specific agents to cause illness and death, dispersion patterns of agents after release, survivability of released microbes, which they had no idea, so they're just spraying this stuff, whatever. Vulnerability of particular target areas, subways, city streets, open land. Effectiveness of various methods of delivery, munitions, air blowers, generators, and hand sprayers. Yeah, this is what they were doing, spraying you with stuff. Effectiveness of various protective measures. So the tests expanded knowledge in all these areas. They demonstrated, for example, that Brucella organisms packed in bomblets could survive a detonation and infect animals a mile from the point of release. Also, agents could spread over great distances. An airplane flying from South Dakota to Minnesota released FP that was later detected 1,200 miles away. Still, even after years of research, few biological weapons had been produced and stockpiled from an, well, we don't know that. And that's just what they, I mean, it's a journal article, so they can't, yeah, they have to say what they get. From a 1969 report, the year the United States renounced its offensive program, no large inventory of dry, powdered, anti-personnel, lethal, or incapacitating biological agents is maintained, and only 8 aircraft spray disseminators are in the inventory. Okay, sure. If you believe that, I got a bridge to say it. Historian John Moon concluded that a key reason for the meager stockpile was that the use of these weapons could result in unpredictable consequences. Well, more predictable consequences. The stubborn resistance of anthrax spores to decontamination. This was something they noticed in England. Efforts on Grinnard Island. So they sprayed anthrax on Grinnard Island and was a prime example of an unexpected consequence. Another occurred during a British sea operation in 1952 when a fishing vessel strayed into a cloud of plague bacteria near the northern Scottish island of Lewis. So after no cases of infection were reported, most records of the incident were destroyed. So we don't know what happened when that boat sailed into a cloud of plague bacteria. So in the United States, after the secret spraying of San Francisco, so this is Operation Sea Spray, folks. In the United States, after the secret spraying of San Francisco, they sprayed San Francisco in Operation Sea Spray with SM in 1950. 11 patients at a city hospital contracted, that's what SM is, Serratia infections, one of whom died. The Army deemed the outbreak a coincidence and continued to use SM as a simulant in subsequent open-air tests. So they were spraying us. They were spraying and spraying. Through the years, the Americans and British explored numerous ways that a biological attack might be launched. So here's some of the things they come up with. 1950, release by seaborne generators blowing from a boat offshore toward San Francisco. That was the Serratia SM test. In 1953, they released by land-based and rooftop-based generators in Minneapolis. More stuff. FP. In 1953, released from automobiles moving in traffic in Minneapolis and St. Louis. FP was released. Over automobiles moving in traffic. Release of Aedes aegypti mosquitoes in 1956. Vectors for yellow fever virus. Release of them in Savannah, Georgia. The test mosquitoes were uninfected females, and the aim was to estimate how many mosquitoes entered houses and bit people. It's also, this aegypti variety of mosquitoes is also a vector for other viruses. Surprise, you know the rest of the story, including the Zika virus, a causative disease agent of much current concern in the Americas. I wonder where that came from. I think we all know. Anyway, just like Lyme disease and all the other diseases like AIDS and yada, yada, you know all of them. Those aren't natural, folks. Whether U.S. testing included additional releases of the species and substantially added to the mosquito population is unknown. I'm sure that was the goal. 1957 and 1958, the continuous release from airplanes during large area coverage flights from the Rockies to the Atlantic, from Canada to the Gulf of Mexico of FP. This is overpopulations. 1965, release by mini generators hidden in briefcases at Washington, D.C. National Airport and Greyhound bus terminals, BG. Previous tests That's bacteria, folks. That's previous tests in Washington in 1949, 1950 using the SM stuff, the Serrata. They were letting it loose on people. That's not, that is not allowed. Anyway, 1966, release from light bulbs filled with simulant, tossed on subway tracks as trains approached stations in New York City. And that's BG. That's a bacteria. Yeah. In addition to these scenarios, various explosive and other aerosol dissemination methods were investigated during the decades of American and British testing. Yet, for all of the inventiveness of the scenarios, none included widespread dispersal of an agent by mail. Well, that's which is, you remember that one? Remember the anthrax? Yeah. Well, hard to say. Anyway, in the fall of 2001, about a half dozen letters, that was the anthrax spores, and it was in 2001. So that was fishy, to be honest with you. Yeah. So it says when the public find out, that's when people are like, hey, don't spray us with shit, you know. The belated disclosures about the open air tests threw charges that simulants as well as select agents had caused previously unexplained illnesses. And this is what Ika, remember guys, this is what Ika has been reminding you about. You don't know what the drones, not the orbs, but you don't know what the drones are going to have to, they're going to plan. Anyway, so people from targeted areas, San Francisco, Minneapolis, St. Louis, Puerto Rico, Dorset, England, sued the government or demanded investigations to validate their health claims. But nothing happens. It's like nothing, it's insane, you know. Neither subsequent studies nor court cases confirmed that the tests had caused illness. Well, they never would, obviously. You think if you're going to go into a court, they're actually going to side with you and not the government. Hello. In fact, establishing a correlation 30 to 50 years after an event complicates the search. Well, exactly. The continued murkiness of the issue was evident in a 2007 study that found no patterns of ill health among 5,500 veterans involved in SHAD. So I was curious about that. But you can't believe those studies. But the study warned that the findings should not be misconstrued as clear evidence that there are no possible long-term health effects related to SHAD involvement. Like that would be my thinking on this. So in 2016, the Institute of Medicine reported on, of course, all this, I hate to say, those are all deep state anyway. All your medical, I'm going to say it quietly, medi, you know who runs those things. So anyway, reported on a follow-up study titled SHAD-2, its summary stated, the SHAD-2 analysis found no clear differences in degree of illness between SHAD participants and the comparison group. This result was consistent with the absence of differences in self-reported hospitalizations noted in SHAD-1, but not in accord with the SHAD-1 survey responses that indicated overall worse health among SHAD veterans. Well, anyway, like he says here, this assessment will likely not satisfy skeptics. No, it won't, actually. That's, yeah. So it's interesting in this study because they kind of make it seem like it's us who's whining. Societal values change over time. Sometimes people are just more compliant with these wonderful experiences, and now all you tinfoil hat people just don't want to get sprayed with anything, right? I mean, this is mind-blowing. They were spraying, I don't care what you're spraying, you don't spray people or spray things that you just don't, right? I mean, it's that are deleterious or that possibly could be deleterious. Oh, here they say, well, societal values change over time and behaviors once considered acceptable are now deemed objectionable. Yeah, because they were fucking lied to. First of all, nobody knew what was going on. I mean, you can't even, they're making it seem like back in the day, people were just, you had to fill out a form and say, hey, we're going to spray you with this. Is that cool? Sure. No, they just sprayed people. That's like, holy shit. Societal values change over time, and behaviors once considered acceptable are now deemed objectionable by you whining tinfoil hat weirdos, which certainly has been the case of research involving human subjects. Yeah. It's against the fucking Nuremberg Code, you buttheads who wrote this fucking journal. I'm sorry. Anyway, yeah. Evolve. I'm not gonna read it more, but you can read this yourself. And here it is actually. Evolving ethical norms. I mean, it's so deep state, so freaking like, it's just like, Jesus Christ. Well, that's the thing. Any of these things are all deep state. Almost everything is. And the 1947 trial verdict against German doctors who conducted ghastly experiments on concentration camp prisoners. Oh, yeah, I didn't do it. Anyway, Project Paperclip brought all of them over here. and they got away with it. Um, the Nuremberg Code. A key tenet of the code holds that experiments on human subjects require their informed consent. That's insane. Even that, right? I mean, it's like, yeah. Although the Nuremberg Code was adopted by the US military, its implementation evolved over time. Yeah, it just didn't get implemented. When the Army began open air biological testing in 1949, that didn't last long, the code seemed of little concern to the testers or their commanders. No surprise. Yeah, because the Germans that were doing all this shit, the founders of Nazi, Dabus, and all that blah blah blah, all of your Project Paperclip. I'll just say that again. Look it up. Project Paperclip erased the histories of all. I mean, bunches of these guys were brought over. And we'll talk about this in Patreon because I can't really talk about it here. But the continuation of the Third Reich into the Fourth, Fifth Reich. Anyway, they presumed the test agents to be harmless. You don't spray people with shit, any kind of shit. And the millions of people exposed were not deemed experimental subjects. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's a great way to get around it. We're going to just spray a bunch of stuff over a city, but we're not going to call anybody there an experimental subject. Cleared way to get. That's so Drake. That's just so what the deep state Illuminati have been doing. Like, yeah, we'll just get we'll just change the way it's worded, or we'll just get your yeah. Both suppositions are debatable. It's just, yeah, let's just debate that. But at that time, challenging authority was less a cultural norm than in subsequent decades. I just gotta love this author, or the author, more than one author who wrote this. It's like, yeah, you guys just challenge authority now. I don't know why. It's just one of those fads. It's one of those fads. Those, you peasants and your fads. So in the 1970s, a lot of this stuff started rolling out. Particularly, well, you all know, of course, the syphilis. We all know that one because Tuskegee and the syphilis things. But in the 1970s, so besides the unknowing participants in biological warfare tests, massive numbers had also become unwitting subjects in chemical and nuclear tests. Numerous military personnel were exposed to mustard and nerve agents in experiments for which they might receive extra leave time, but little information about the potential dangers of their exposures. Oh, they poison the military left and right. And that's what drives me crazy. You guys watch Michael Salla and JP, and I love JP to death. He's just the sweetest guy. But you guys gotta fricking not let them touch him. I mean, oh my God. Anyway, why do they don't let them put anything in your body. Don't put yourself, just stand, get some balls, buddy. I'm sorry. It's just like, anyway, all right. Similarly, unaware of the risks, thousands of soldiers have been subjected to increased radiation. And actually, that was happening. Barber, that guy there with the little chicken egg thing they're picking up. Yeah, he was exposed to radiation when they were fecking around with the reverse engineering, because they did a lot of reverse engineering. A lot of people were killed. Actually, Bill Tompkins talked about that in some of these tests. They didn't know what the fuck they were doing, so they were killing people. And oops. Anyway, many more thousands of civilians were unwittingly dosed with radiation downwind from the tests. Oops. Sorry, my bad. Whatever. We want to kill you guys off anyway, so make it easier. So such belatedly revealed information, yeah, a little too late after they got you, so prompted federal legislation that mandated the establishment of review boards to oversee an institution's research involving human subjects. The new law was an expression of growing sensitivity to the rights of individuals in relation to authority. Okay. So yeah. Anyway, I'm going to give you the link to that. You can read it. There's a bunch of these things out there on the internet concerning this stuff. So I want to bring up before we run. This selected by Extraterrestrials, Volume 3. So this is William Mills Tompkins, My Life in Top Secret World of UFOs, Think Tanks, and Nordic Secretaries. So the Nordic Secretaries are of curiosity here. But William Tompkins explains a lot of the deep, dark, and delicious stuff that was going on in all these different think tanks that he worked for. McDonnell Douglas, all those kind of, you name them. You all know him, Raytheon. He didn't work for Raytheon, but there's Boeing, Raytheon, um, Northrop Grumman, blah, blah. Yeah. Skunk Works, yada, 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 right? You know all these bullshit. Dugway, they're talking about Dugway a lot. They're spraying you from there. Okay. So Bill says here, he says, this is about a little bit of some of the Nazi, not Nazi stuff that was going on. He says, Bill says, well, I have to confess, I wish I knew a lot more because it's a very interesting subject and it has to do with the Nazis. But the young ladies put together their program. Now he talks about the young ladies. He was talking about these curious, young, very attractive. Um, Something's up with these, right? That he would have. These were his secretaries. But these are the ones that were working many, I mean, in the 1890s and 1900s. And they seem to have had contact with extraterrestrials, possibly from Aldebaran. Now, the Ahel have a colony in Aldebaran. So, but the young ladies put together their program to build an escape anti-gravity craft. That is similar to what the Pleiadians build, the long cigar-shaped tube type things. So they built the two UFOs that are out at Area 51 now. Now, supposedly there should be the cigar craft in Area 51. They were the prototypes. They also built several of delta-shaped vehicles, anti-gravity, but they concentrated on the transports because that's what they were told to do. So the Nordics, I don't know, I'm assuming it might be GFW, I'm not sure, but the Nordics back during the Nazis were preparing for an evacuation because World War II is not what anybody thinks it is, right? It's an alliance between the Nazis and the Altair, the negative Pleiadians, and also the Draco. So the benevolent extraterrestrials were wondering what they could do if there was a possible evacuation on Earth during that time. That's how bad things were. So, so they were building these transports because they were told to build them, and they were shown how to build them. And it's possible this Maria Orsic might be Jessica. And they accepted, with nobody pushing them, the mission to leave the planet, go to another star's planet and live there, which would be a utopian life. I second that. I second. So you have to say, this is Bill Tompkins. Well, who told them to do this and who talked to them? And so the area that I feel is most correct in this is that, yes, it's the Nordics. And this is Bill Tompkins saying, Nordics are usually tall, blonde, blue-eyed young ladies that he would work with. But many of them are dark haired too, but they're all light skinned and they are not just one group of humanoid Nordics. Today, it's been accepted, at least in our area that there are maybe as many as 95 different types of extraterrestrial people who have the appearance, or close to, of a Nordic type of person. Yeah, so that's why the people just say Nordic because it's hard to tell. Well, we can, you feel the vibe, but I mean, most of the time, these are different civilizations. Some of them are very nice, others are not very nice. So they are just part of this entire story that we're trying to learn about and present to the audience here. So when I was raped by the Nazis, um, upstairs, one of the females that was there was an extraterrestrial. She would look like a Nordic, a hell, but she was not. And anyway, the first girl then managed 12 other girls, and they then contacted many other people in and out of Germany and European area. And they then decided that they would go and collectively build very, very large, quarter-kilometer long space transports and leave the planet. Bring all their friends, all their relatives, to the extent that you could have as many as 1,000 people on board. And probably more than that. Anyway, so this is not a small vehicle. It's not a UFO. These are massive cigar-shaped vehicles. Okay, they're Pleiadian. That would be my take on that. And for these are what we use for cargo. And for these young ladies to do this, obviously nobody believes it. Right? So Jeff Rentz asked them, well, he says, well, geez, they had to have had some kind of engineers. They had to have tool and die makers. They had to have state-of-the-art technology. They had to have an awful lot of tech support to do this. They didn't just get out there with, a welding torch and some cutting tools and start to put these things together. So Bill says, yeah, Jeff, you're absolutely correct. And yes, along with this, there were many ranchers and farmers and like shoe salesmen in Berlin. But these people took loans on their homes. They borrowed every penny they can get to get materials, and then they collectively, with the support of the extraterrestrials, were building UFOs and then building large space transports. Now, of course, the secret space program, the early solar wardens, the ones that were designed by William Mills Tompkins, they were just retrofitted submarines. So now this young lady, from what Frank Chili has indicated disappeared after the end of the war. Now, this is Maria Orsic. But before she had disappeared, she and many of the others had taken off in their own vehicles and gone out to some of the closest stars to our sun and come back. And their base was in Antarctica in one of the large caverns. So they built these facilities. It's not that they didn't build them, they built them. And they were building extremely large ones, much larger than the first cigar-shaped vehicles. And yes, they were anti-gravitationally propelled, which none of them knew anything about before. Everything was given to them to accomplish this. And like I said before, when the SS found out what they were doing in the startups at the beginning, they confiscated everything that the girls were doing and these other people, and then they allowed them to go onto a separate space development program in Antarctica. And this was in parallel to everything that the German SS was doing in building production UFOs and spacecraft carriers. Of course, the first Terrans to leave the planet were the Germans, Nazis, and they went to the moon, right? So the young ladies, the photographs that they have here, that's all one person with the exception of the young lady that has the cigarette. There's some pictures in here anyway. So Jeff says, there's a blonde, Maria Orsic, and two pictures of a brunette. That's what we have. Bill says, right. And I only have one picture of the brunette, but I guess I misunderstood from what I heard about that group, the photographs, that she was supposed to have been Maria. So I'm glad you covered that for us. So George, Bill, did the operatives bring back any information when you folks debriefed them about Maria Orsic and her project with Aldebaran? Jeff, Aldebaran, for our audience, is the name of a planet. I'm not sure if it's a star, but it's not sure if it's in this galaxy or another galaxy. It could be on the other side of the Milky Way. So we need to hear a little more about Aldebaran. So Frank Chili says, I believe it's in our system, Jeff, and it's 68 light years from Earth. So Jeff, okay, yeah, Frank Chili. And from what I read, Maria was given information how to develop and open up either a wormhole or a warping type of portal to be able to go from Earth to Aldebaran. So I'll have Frank come on sometime and talk about his work with this. So Jeff, now we have a picture of that, a graphic representation of that kind of concept right after their pictures on your picture page tonight. So if you'll scroll down, so you'll see, so making plans to get out of here by 1945. The SS is carrying on trying like crazy to build their line of disc craft to defend the Reich, but they're running out of time. What happened? Now, you said they were going to build an enormous craft, which would be very hard to find from aerial overflights by the Allies in Germany, unless it was very well camouflaged. So many of the undercover American military would come back and explain in detail what they saw in Germany in his anti-gravity crown. So Bill says, yes, they did. But these were all built underground in mountains. And so you don't see the vehicles at all until they were given to a test. And the 8th Air Force and some of their investigator pilots did see these vehicles. So it's not that they didn't get built, but that was at the early era of the war, not near the end. Almost everything was taken out of the underground production facilities and put in the SS Navy submarine transports and taken to Antarctica. So these ships were allowed, the United States allowed those ships to move down to Antarctica with that. Commander Bethune was aware of that, and they told him not to do anything. So Commander Bethune was the one who worked with Admiral Byrd when they were going down to Antarctica, and they got creamed by UFOs flown by the Nazis. So, so Frank says, Jeff, I had asked Bill. Bill is I wanted to mention to Jeff. This is Frank. I wanted to mention to Jeff, and you can mention this to the audience. I asked you if Dr. Davis, that is the founder, one of the founders of NASA, was aware of the Aldebaran connection as well as Maria Orsic connection, and you said he was well aware of it. So Bill says yes. So NASA is a front. You know that. He was very much aware of that, but that was not something like Jeff had said. This is sort of kind of new for this subject, and we haven't studied it. And this is one of the things that needs to be accomplished in aerospace. But the result of Project Paperclip, which is the other major problem that we got into here, where not only a great deal of hardware was taken from Germany to both Russia and the United States, but the personnel came over here. And what I want to say at this point, if I could, it's difficult for the public to accept that, not only, as Jeff said, the SS actually ran the Apollo program. Hello? The SS ran the Apollo program. with all the German scientists developing it. And not only that, but these German scientists were infiltrating all of the American aerospace corporations. And I use the word infiltrating because that's actually what they did. So he says, did you meet some in Douglas and Lockheed, Thompson, Remo Woolwich? And Bill says, yes. Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, there you go. I don't know. I'm going to pull up a, but there's a picture. I don't know if the picture of Maria Orsic is in this book or some of the other ones, but you can Google her name. Um, did she look like the woman I telepath with? Yeah. The woman was blonde that I telepath with. She was in California. I contacted her as Jessica. So yeah, but you can look that up. Just in Maria Orsic. Anyway, yeah. So that's pretty much that's it for today. I don't think I have anything else I wanted to show you. I'll just run back to my screen share and we'll probably just call it quits. I'll get to the end of this video and see if we have anything. We went through all that, so dragging it to the end here. I don't think I have anything else. That was just there's the ship. Um, yeah, we're pretty good. There was a PubMed Central and we're rock and roll, I guess. The abstract. Yeah. Done. All right, guys. So with that, have a wonderful Thursday. I don't even know what date it is, half time. Friday. No, it's actually Friday. It's like Thursday. No, it's Friday. What am I thinking? Um we had snowstorms on Thursday, another one coming Sunday. So I've been at the barn and back and forth. So it is actually Friday. When you're a farmer, every day is the same, doesn't matter. So anyway, cool beans. Have a wonderful Friday evening, and we'll see you guys again. Take care.